Dr. Teresa Hairston, celebrating 30 years of kingdom service and 60 years of life. Chapter 1. 30 years ago, Dr. Teresa Hairston stepped into the gospel industry as a songwriter-arranger for artists including the late Albertina Walker, the Georgia Mass Choir, and Bishop Jeff Banks' Revival Temple Choir. And this is her story.
The early days of my life were very, very interesting. My father died when I was 7 months old. I remember that as a child, my house was filled with music. My mother loved gospel music. She played and sang. So I had a love of gospel because she put that in me. I got my first job at 7 years old playing for a local church. But I kept the love of music and gospel music particularly in my life. When I went to college, I went to Bowling Green State University in Ohio. I met a young man on campus who was Reverend Gregory Smith. He told me my first day on campus, I'll never forget it, he walked up to me, he said, "You're going to be the new director of the gospel choir." But it taught me responsibility and it taught me accountability. At the end of my senior year, I decided that this young man I'd been dating a couple of years, I'd get married. We got married and moved to New Jersey, but I couldn't find a job and I started a temporary assignment. There at that position, I met a lady named Dr. Hazel Page. I got to know her family, her children. I got to know her husband, Bishop Liston Page Sr.
She loved people and she really loved her work.
I developed an appreciation for more than music. I'd been in church all my life, but the music drew me and kept me up until that time. And I learned to appreciate and treasure the Word. In 1979, I moved from New Jersey and my family left and we went to St. Louis. And over the next couple of years, it was a rapid succession of movement. And then my marriage ended. I got a divorce and it was a very, very difficult time in my life. I felt derailed. I had this picture of where I was going, and all of a sudden I hit the wall, and I didn't know what was next.
I needed somebody to assist me in my office in New York City, and of course I never thought that it would be Teresa.
In 1987, as a single mother, she became national director of promotions for Savoy Records.
So I took the leap of faith and I moved. I packed up those kids and got a U-Haul truck and got on the road and drove to New York.
It was one of the best things I think I did for Savoy Records and for me.
Where she worked with legends like James Cleveland, Albertina Walker, Reverend Timothy Wright, the Georgia Mass Choir, and Reverend Milton Bingham.
Because I started a newsletter for them. It was the Savoy Record.
She worked in the music industry by day and educated herself by night on the business of publishing, and she sought out mentors and called upon her contacts in the music industry, where she worked in marketing at Savoy Records at that time.
About 6 months later, the company decided to take it into another division. They put it in Malaco's division, which was in Jackson, Mississippi.
She started with the idea of doing a publication of her own.
I went back to my boss after the newsletter was going to the other division, and I asked permission. I said, "Would you allow me to do a newsletter on my own?"
And she worked on it in her spare time and popped Score.
When Hairston started her newsletter, she called it Score, as in musical score.
My kids were my first staff. We would sit in the middle of the floor at night and I would say, "Baby, staple those newsletters together. Here, you put the stamp on them."
My mom was like, "There's no options. I mean, work's got to get done. You're 7, get to labeling." So that was a really great experience.
I didn't have an office. My office was my bedroom.
The one word that I try to sum up my mother's life is the word resilience.
Teresa is such an innovator and such a pioneer. She blessed me so when we started first doing the gospel jazz thing when I left the NBA with an injury. And she was one of the few that said, "You know something, there's something to this gospel jazz instrumental. So let me give this guy a chance." So she featured me in her magazine. At that time, it was the Score magazine, and also went on to the Gospel Today. And the many things that she has really branched out into, her Heritage Festival and all the many ministries that she's over. We are so super proud of such a general in the body of Christ, celebrating such a great occasion today.
I wanted to take this opportunity to say, bless you, to say, the Lord be with you. I noticed that you have already done 30 years of kingdom work with your magazine and all. We're so proud of you. And now you have 60 years of life. And I must say, you're still beautiful. So you take this time, let the people celebrate you. Let them love on you. Because while I'm not there, that's what I'm doing